y'all.
A lot of good looks.
It's Around the Horn, delivered by Pizza Hut. Here's Tony Reale.
Hey now.
That's right. Welcome back to the show that scores the argument. Here they are, the national panel. ESPN.com's J.A. Adande.
Blake Griffin in the Garden tonight. Ward to Mozgov. Duck.
Woody Page at the Denver Post.
Bomani, that's not a belt. This is a belt.
Tim Kalisha at
Here's
the Dallas
how you
Morning
end a
News.
losing streak. Preparation, knowledge,
And
insight.
the Morning Jones is Bomani Jones.
How come your belt doesn't shine like my belt shines?
What is this?
Because
becoming
I
of this
shine.
show?
I just want to know.
Well,
Where's your
Spinning
bling?
like Aaron Rodgers.
Where's your bling?
Self-promotion is the maiden call to mute.
It's the first word.
I'm going to start you guys off with LeBron James. 41, 13, and 8 last night. 39 and 8 over his last 20 games. His coach, Eric Spoelstra, quote, MVP-like, end quote. And here's my favorite play. The smush into the face of Dwayne Wade. I'd like to think the last thing that went through Dwayne Wade's head, besides that basketball, was that LeBron might be MVP. Get busy living or get busy dying. Oh, that is the worst Morgan Freeman ever. Okay. Could he be MVP, Bomani Jones?
I mean, what else is 39 and 8 if not the MVP? Absolutely. Let's not forget this about Miami. Yes, we know they're loaded at the top, but we also know they're thin at the bottom, and in particular, thin in distributing the ball, thin in getting rebounds. And what's LeBron doing? He's leading them in scoring, coming with the rebounds, coming with the assists, and these are all things that they need. This isn't gravy on top of everything else that they get. And this is a team, let's remember, that started off slow and needed a leader, and people said, who's going to be the front man on this team? It has been LeBron James. They lead the league in point differential. They're second in the East, and this is with a bunch of guys that were just thrown together this year, really, when you stop and think about it.
Let's see what Kalisha thinks.
Well, first, I want to say that was an excellent Katharine Hepburn imitation. Second, I want to say when we did do an MVP discussion recently, I heard Derrick Rose's name, I heard Chris Paul's name.
Yes, I did
Only one
too.
panelist mentioned LeBron names.
Why don't you
LeBron
tell us who
James'
that
name.
panelist was?
It's the mating call of the mute. I can't say it. Just
Okay.
trying to remember who said it. You know, people said his numbers would drop when he goes to Miami, has to share things with Dwayne Wade. They're really not dropping. He's the only guy you can tell is the MVP when you watch two teams play, the Heat and the Cavaliers.
Page.
Well, when you consider points per game, when you consider rebounds, higher field goal percentage, the fact that leading the league in efficiency rating, it's got to be LeBron James. This is not a surge. This has been the entire year growing and growing, and I think it's going to get better before the end of the year. The most important stat of all, though, is Miami's leading the division. Chicago Bulls aren't. Who else you going to put into
Bulls lead
the
one
fact
division,
you can't
Woody.
say from
The
the
Heat
San
lead
Antonio
another.
Spurs. They spread it around a bunch of guys. The Boston Celtics, who are at the top there, have four guys actually that are stepping forward. He has, when Chris Bosh has been hurt, he stepped up his game. When Wade hasn't played as well, he stepped up his game. It's got to be LeBron James, the number one villain in the NBA, but the number one player, the
Adande.
MVP.
Woody, when Dwayne Wade was getting off to that slow start, coming back from the hamstring when he missed the whole preseason, they struggled out of the gate. When Chris Bosh was out of the last 4 games recently, they lost 2 of them. We've seen how Derrick Rose has kept the Chicago Bulls in that elite discussion. If they're not there, then they're right at that next tier when they didn't have Joakim Noah, when they didn't have Carlos Boozer. So LeBron James is showing that he's the best player as he's been for the past 3 regular seasons.
Jones.
But I think value is a subjective category, and that's where I'm putting
Jones
Derrick
back.
Rose
Yeah,
as more
but let's not
valuable.
forget this. If you take LeBron James away from the Miami Heat, it's Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and a couple of dudes that probably would be working regular jobs if their lives hadn't gone right. I mean, let's stop and think about that. He's still LeBron James, and they need him. Remember the things that he does and the things that this team does not have without him. At least Rose has Noah or Boozer. There is no
Has he
combination.
exceeded your expectations? I know maybe the Heat haven't, but has he, Kalisha?
I think he has, and especially if you look at the Heat, what he's done and what the Heat have done since they were 9 and 8 or whatever, I think they have gone
Adande?
beyond it.
No, I had him as a preseason MVP pick. Just because he had other good players doesn't mean he was going to stop being great.
Oh, so since you had him as your preseason MVP, then he has.
I didn't think Derrick Rose was going to do all this.
Okay. Let's move on. I think you're going to love talking about this next story. The Payton family moving to Dallas.
Yes.
Some Saints fans wondering if their coach is committed to the team, committed to the city of New Orleans. Payton came out yesterday trying to assuage those concerns, says it's a family move, and he won't be commuting. He'll be in New Orleans. Saints have signed off on this. Other coaches like Dungy and Doc Rivers and Avery Johnson in basketball now have done this before. Are you okay with the Payton family move to Dallas, Woody Page?
Not at all, and you said they signed off on it, but I don't think they like it at all. Mickey Lomas, when this was brought up, when Payton was hired and said he'd like to live in Dallas, he nixed that idea. I don't think Tom Benson feels like it's a good idea for him to be living in Dallas and coaching year-round, full-time in New Orleans. And New Orleans, as we all know, is a unique situation, given what happened with Katrina and the way that Drew Brees has reached out to that community. How can you and your family as a coach be a part of the community when you're commuting in a private jet back and forth to a gated
he said
community
he wouldn't be commuting.
in Dallas?
Okay.
Well, I'm saying, though, he's going to go visit his kids. They're going to come visit him. I think you've got to be an integral part of the community. Archie Manning still lives in the Garden District. He could put his family there. There are a number of gated communities in the suburbs where he could live with private schools.
Adonde, what do you think?
This is a put
Exactly.
down
In
of the
a
entire
hypersensitive
community.
place like New Orleans post-Katrina, it comes off as a smack in the face of that city. It says that the amenities aren't good enough, that the police department isn't good enough, that the school district isn't good enough. So that city doesn't need another kick while it's still down recovering from Katrina. And it's interesting that he asked for this arrangement when he first got to the Saints, and they said no, it wouldn't be a good idea. So what makes him think it's a good idea now? The true sign that this is not a good idea, the fact that they had to issue a press release with statements saying this is all right.
Okay,
That always
but
lets
is
you
it
know things
impossible
aren't all
that
right.
Payton has earned some goodwill here, Kalisha?
I think he has to, as the only coach ever to win a Super Bowl there. It is, I do agree with Adonde. The people down there in New Orleans probably have hurt feelings about that and it's understandable. But there are other coaches whose families live elsewhere. There are prominent veteran players who do not live where their teams play. I think we need to wait and see how much time is he really spending in Westlake and how much time is he still down in New Orleans preparing for
Monty
next
Jones.
season.
And look, if he really wanted to live in Dallas, he would have tried to get that Cowboys job, which was just open, as I recall. No, I don't think it's that big of a deal because I know it's 2011, and chances are this isn't just his decision to make within his own household. So let's consider that that could be part of it. They want their kids who are high school age to start school in Dallas, start high school in Dallas. All those things make sense. It's just going to be a tough sell in a city that barely knows what's going on one town over because it loves itself just that much and enjoys being in New Orleans. But if he can make it work and his wife is okay with it and his boss is okay with it, then I'm fine.
Woody Page back in.
After Katrina, 208 companies and their CEOs moved to other cities. Most of them didn't come back. I think if you're the head coach of the most popular franchise there and probably the biggest factor for New Orleans, you've got to stay there. And the only reason why he wants to live in Texas is not because of that good weather, Tim Kalishaw, but because there's no state income tax. He's making enough money. Stay in New Orleans where you belong.
You also have to wonder, I mean, sure, he's going to work a lot of late nights at the office, but what's it going to be like when he wakes up in the morning and the wife and kids aren't there?
Kalishaw.
One thing to keep in mind, in 3 weeks, barring a big change, there's going to be a lockout. There are no OTAs. There are no mini camps. Nothing to do in New Orleans for Sean Payton.
Oh, but he's getting paid, so he could go live in Dallas.
What does that matter? Talk about
We
where he
need
has to
Emerald.
work.
Well, he should show up for
Or
work
two
every
sisters.
day.
We've been
To do
horned.
what?
We're taking a break.